Offseason number 3 for Joe Schoen is here as the general manager for the New York Giants. And in today's video, I have an 8-step plan that Joe Schoen should follow if he wants the New York Giants to get back to a spot where they are talked about as one of the top teams in this league. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. Before we dive into my perfect offseason plan, I got to make sure everybody watching this video is subscribed. We are going to be your one-stop shop all off-season long for everything Big Blue. We put out free, informative, entertaining, passion-driven content for all the real Giants fans out there. So if that's what you're looking for this offseason, subscribe to the channel right now. My number one thing that I want to see the Giants do this offseason is hire Mike Zimmer as the defensive coordinator to replace Wink Martindale and be the guy to run the defense for the New York Giants. He is my number one Wink Martindale replacement. They've already requested to interviews a couple of guys. Zimmer has not been a name that we have learned that has gotten a requested interview from Big Blue. But why do I think he should be the guy? One, because I do think he is the best candidate available. And what he was able to do in Minnesota, not just as a head coach, but really the mastermind and the brains behind that defense that was so good for so long and held them in a spot in the NFC North where they compete against a team like the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. I want to see that same swag, that same intensity, and that same aggressive defense that Zimmer ran with the Vikings, with the Giants. On top of that, he was the mastermind behind one of the best defenses in recent NFL history. I mean, you see the stats on screen. In 2017, the Vikings were phenomenal. And I want to see a guy come in that's already been a head coach before. And so Brian Daboll can just hand him the keys to the defense and say, you run this. You worry about the defense, and I'll fix the offense, because there's a whole lot of problems with that. Zimmer would be a great guy for the Giants to go and hire, and he's also really good friends with Andre Patterson, who was with him when he was in Minnesota, and I want to keep Patterson as the defensive line coach for Big Blue. Number 2, Brian Daboll, become the play caller. I think Mike Kafka has done a pretty good job, and at times, he's done a really good job. I mean, heck, he made Daniel Jones look good, and he helped Daniel Jones steal $82 million guaranteed from the New York Giants. But Brian Daboll, you were brought here as the head coach of this football team for really one reason, and it's for what you did as an offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. You were brought here to fix the offense. We're going into offseason number 2 full-time, and we're about to go into your 3rd year as a Giants head coach. And still, it is a problem that how bad this offense is. Just had one of the worst offenses statistically in a season of all time. I understand the injuries. I understand the offensive line. But it's time for Brian Daboll to step in and fix the offense. That's why you were brought here. You can keep Kafka. You can let him go. I know he's got an interview with the Titans as the head coach spot. I don't think he'll get that gig. But I need Daboll more involved in this offense. He needs to get it right on. He needs to get this offense back on track. Let's talk about the draft now after we've talked about a couple of staffing things. Giants are going to pick number 6 in the draft if there is no movement from Schoen up or down in that first round. So for me, I've been very loud about how I want the Giants to go get a new quarterback. I've also been loud about how I want the Giants to fix the offensive line. And I've come to this conclusion. Draft the best player available at 6. The Giants need more good football players. They simply do not have enough good football players to compete at the top of the league where there's a lot of other teams that have multiple all-pro selections. Just one for the New York Giants. If it's a QB, fine. If it's an offensive lineman, fine. If it's a playmaker, fine. I don't really care too much about the position. Get a good football player, because that's what wins in this league. And the Giants, they simply just do not have enough good football players. With the Giants picking 6 in the draft, they really only need 6 players that they absolutely love. This is what Joe Schoen said he did when he picked back in 2022 at slot 5 and 7 when he walked away with Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. He found 7 guys that he was in love with. So no matter what, no matter how the draft board shook out, he was going to get one of his guys. So I'm going to approach that this offseason, this draft, very similar to how Joe Schoen approached the 2022 NFL draft. There's 6 guys that I am currently in love with. And I would be absolutely fascinated if the Giants were somehow able to get a guy like Jaden Daniels or Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. And you might say, well, Marshall, there's no way Caleb Williams or Drake May or Marvin Harrison Jr. will be there at 6. And I agree. They will not be on the clock when pick number 6 is here. But the Giants have the ammunition when it comes to draft picks. They have draft pick currency to be able to move up in the draft if they want to. They have that 6th overall pick. They also own the 39th pick. They got the 47th pick, the 2nd overall selection for the Seattle Seahawks due to that Leonard Williams trade. And you also have pick number 70. You have 4 picks inside the top 70. Joe Schoen, if you truly believe that Caleb Williams or Drake May can put this franchise in a spot of security at the quarterback position for the next 10, 15 years, you have to move up. Because as soon as you have your coach and as soon as you have your quarterback, you can compete in this league. And I think the Giants do have their coach in Brian Daboll, but they do not have a quarterback on this roster right now that can help them win games once we get into months like January and February. Who do you want the Giants to draft? For me, it is truly who is the best player available. I would like to see them trade up because I think you need a quarterback. I think you need to get that guy in the building and let Brian Daboll start to work with him. But let me know what you think. Who do you want to see wearing a Giants draft hat coming up this spring? Coming up next, I'm going to tell you what the Giants need to do with running back Saquon Barkley, whose contract is up, and star safety Xavier McKinney. The Giants are going to have to make a difficult decision on both of these players. And I feel pretty confident that both of these guys will not be back. I think one of them will, but there's no way both can come back unless Joe Schoen really starts to get through some salary cap gymnastics. We'll break that down around the corner. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Factor. Go to factormeals.com/GiantsChat50 and use that promo code GiantsChat50. And Factor is going to give you 50% off your first order. Get started on your resolution with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, plus so much more and over 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolution. That's factormeals.com/GiantsChat50, factormeals.com/GiantsChat50, and use that promo code GiantsChat50 for 50% off. I'll make sure all that information is clickable down in the comments and description of today's show. Before we get to Barkley and McKinney, I kind of just want a backdoor right here. Let's say the Giants are on the clock at 6, and they don't think Daniels is that guy, and Caleb Williams and Drake May are off the board. If no quarterback is selected in round 1, the Giants need to go out and sign a veteran quarterback. Why? Because a guy like Daniel Jones is coming off a torn ACL. Who knows if he'll be ready to go week 1? Tyrod Taylor is a free agent. So really, the only quarterback that you know for a fact on this roster that's going to be healthy week 1 is Tommy DeVito. So who are some guys you could look to bring in, whether it's for competition or if Daniel Jones starts the year and struggles, you could take him out and put someone in that can lead this team. We've also seen this year how important the backup quarterback position is. Look at the Browns. Look across the league. A lot of backup QBs are playing. I would be interested in bringing Tyrod Taylor back. I think Tyrod was the best player to wear a Giants uniform and play the quarterback position this year, and I don't think it is relatively close. I've always been a fan of Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a winner, and I think he's a guy that can come in and lead a locker room and also really just get people to buy in. Just a good, solid football player. Ryan Tannehill, back half of his career, best days are behind him. But if you're talking about bringing in competition for Daniel Jones, I like Ryan Tannehill, Sam Darnold, or Jameis Winston, even though he likes to run the ball when he gets told to knee it out. I'd be a fan if any of these guys were wearing big blue next year. Daniel Jones simply needs competition. He has not earned the right, outside of how much money he gets paid this year, to walk in and be announced the Giants starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. Bring someone in that can challenge him and maybe hopefully help him take that next step in his career. Let's say you don't draft a quarterback in round 1 and you don't want to sign a veteran quarterback. If there's a guy in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round that you fall in love with, I'm cool with pulling the trigger because I believe Brian Daboll can help develop a young quarterback. And a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on is Spencer Rattler. A couple of years ago, he was talked about it as a preseason number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And he had to transfer from Oklahoma, and it hasn't worked out all that well. He will have the best pro day in recent memory. This kid can spin it a lot better than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Special arm talent, and I believe Dable can unlock that and help him become an actual NFL quarterback. Another guy with awesome attributes, skill set, and an unlimited or no ceiling whatsoever is a guy like Joe Milton, the quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers. 6'5", 235 pounds. No bullshit, he could throw the ball 80 yards, and he's also a good runner. Had 7 rushing touchdowns this year. Giants want to throw the ball deep. We saw that with Tyrod Taylor. Not saying he's ready to play right now, but he kind of fits the mold of what I want to see Dable be handed at that quarterback position. Unlimited talent and unlimited ceiling if it works. Joe Milton fits that mold. So we've talked about the staff. We've talked about the draft. I don't know how I got to step 5 in my offseason plan without saying this. That's why it's in all caps on the screen. Fix the offensive line. Joe Schoen, when you took over as the Giants general manager back in January of 2022, the number one problem on this football team was the offensive line. Dave Gettleman left the offensive line in a horrible spot. It is now offseason number 3 for you, Joe Schoen. And the problem that was number one most important for you to fix in offseason number 1, which you didn't have the tools to do so and resources to do so, still haunts this football team. Get it done, Joe Schoen. Put the assets to work. Get the guys up front to help make this team successful. You have roughly $34.8 million in cap space. You could save another 5.7 if you cut a guy like Mark Lewinsky. That gets you to almost, $40 million, if not $40 million. Go out and sign a veteran guard that's proven in this league. There's 2 guys that I'm looking at. They both come from the Miami Dolphins. Robert Hunt, a guard, and Connor Williams, who's played center the last 2 years for Miami, but played guard for the Dallas Cowboys before going to the Dolphins, can help you there as well. These are 2 guys that are regarded as some of the best interior offensive linemen. And when you have a young center, you have a young right tackle, you need 2 guards next to them that can make their life easier. It'd be great to get both of them, but I need one of them wearing an NY on their helmet next year. All right, let's talk about Saquon Barkley. I know a lot of people want to know what I have to say, and for me, I'm going to continue to beat the drum that I've been beating all offseason long. And this has nothing to do with emotions, because I love Saquon Barkley. One of my favorite players to ever play for the Giants. One of the most talented players to ever do so. I bought his jersey a week after he was drafted. You have to franchise tag Saquon Barkley. There's another option I'll give you in a second, but right now, in my opinion, Saquon Barkley is on the decline. And that's not a diss. He's a running back, and running backs don't get better in their career as they get older. It's just proven. Franchise tag him. It costs you $12.4 million. If you don't want to do the franchise tag just because of how much you respect Saquon, and you don't want to go through that again, I can understand that. But your only other option is a 2-year deal. I'll give you 2 years, $22 million with $15 million guaranteed. That gives you about $3 more million in the franchise tag and some security going into year 2. Look, if you play great in year 1 and signs are pointing in the right direction, sure, we can, modify that contract. But that's really as far as I will go. Not because of talent, not because of the player, it's because of the position. And there's so many slices of pie that you have to go around to fix this team. Those are the only 2 options I could do with Saquon Barkley. And when it comes to Xavier McKinney, you cannot afford to overpay him. I think Xavier McKinney, the X-Man, is a good football player. But for me, personally, I can't break the bank for Xavier McKinney. I would love to have him back on this football team. He was absolutely great this year. Best year in the National Football League. He was first in coverage grade per Pro Football Focus. 4th among safeties in tackle grade. 4th in overall grade. A 53 passer rating when targeted and 3 interceptions. But you know what? Xavier McKinney is going to try to get the bag. This is a screenshot that he posted on his Instagram. He showed the numbers, and he said, men lie, women lie, numbers never lie. Top 5, top 5, top 5. And if you want to be paid like a top 5 safety, it's going to cost you about $16 million. And to be nice, the Giants cannot afford to pay Xavier McKinney $16 million per year, and I don't think he honestly deserves that. I think paying a safety that type of money is kind of like the icing on the cake. When you feel like you're one player away from really competing. I can't afford to do that because some of the worst contracts in the NFL are guys like Harrison Smith and Jamal Adams and Derwin James. He's great when he plays, but he's not all that healthy. Budda Baker wasn't all that good this year for Arizona. I think McKinney's good. I'd give him about $10 million per year. I can't put him on that screen of the top 10 highest paid safeties. I just can't. And I actually believe that only one of these guys are going to be back. I don't think Joe Schoen can afford to do what he wants to do in the team building and the evolution of this roster by paying both these guys the money that they want and think they deserve. So I'll ask you a difficult question. I asked my dad this the other day, and he didn't have an answer for me. So I thought it was a good question. You can only pick one of these guys to keep. Who would it be? Type 29 for X or 26 for Saquon Barkley. We haven't even talked about adding offensive playmakers, but that is absolutely a part of what I need the Giants to do and what I would do to help get this team on track. For me, I'm looking at a guy like Courtland Sutton or Calvin Ridley in NFL free agency. Well, you might say, Marsh, Courtland Sutton's not a free agent. He's not. Look what he posted on Instagram. He said, Broncos country, I'm very grateful to be able to have finished off another season here. Unfortunately, we were not able to accomplish our main goal. I'm still grateful for all my teammates and support staff that have been riding with me all season. I know all things happen for a reason, and I trust my God's plan over everything, including whatever is next for me. Just know I gave everything to this team and organization every time I stepped on the field. All love, 14. To me, that sounds like a goodbye message. And why would he do that? Let's go look at his contract situation. What do you know? The Denver Broncos can get out of Courtland Sutton's contract right now, and they only have $7.65 million in dead cap. If Courtland Sutton is on the roster next year for Denver, it would cost them $17.2 million. So if the Denver Broncos cut Courtland Sutton, Joe Schoen should pick up the phone and go try to make him a New York Giant. The injury history was something of the past. He used to be a guy that was always nicked up and injured. He played 17 games in 2021, 15 games in 2022, and 16 games in 2023. He is your true outside receiver. He can play on the outside, and he's a guy that's going to need attention from safeties. Hasn't had less than 13 yards per catch in 3 seasons. And he had 10 receiving touchdowns this year, and that was playing with Russell Wilson, who had one of the lowest ADOTs in the National Football League. Put that ball on the top shelf, and Courtland Sutton can go get it better than almost anybody in this league. A true big body receiver that's great. I'm also a big fan of Calvin Ridley. And when I have listened personally about Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll talk about the receivers that they want on this football team when it comes to skill set and how they operate and how they're used, go back and listen. They want route runners, they want separators, and they want generators with the football in their hands. They want yards after catch guy. That is the definition of Calvin Ridley. There are rumors out there that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to franchise tag him. If that happens, you're not going to be able to get him. What if they let him hit free agency? He is a special, special receiver, ladies and gentlemen. What he did in 2020 was just sick. The guy had 90 catches for almost 1,400 yards and 15 yards per catch. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. He can run every route on the tree. Had a couple of drops this year. I'm going to relate that to the fact they didn't play in 2022 because of the suspension due to the gambling. But this is a guy that can come in and be your true wide receiver one. And any young quarterback would like to throw to someone that's always open. That's exactly what Calvin Ridley is. If it's not Sutton and it's not Ridley, here are the other top free agent receivers. I don't think you have enough money for a guy like Higgins or Mike Evans. Do you want to give Michael Pittman $20 million per year? I don't need Hollywood Brown. I've got Wandale and I've got Hyatt and I've got Slayton. I'm a fan of Darnell Mooney. He's another guy I'm keeping my eye on. I think he got underutilized in Chicago. He's had a 1,000-yard season in his career, but the brain trust and the brains and the operations in Chicago on the offensive end to be nice this year were elementary, and I think that really limited his production. I'm not a fan of Gabe Davis. I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Odell Beckham Jr. Not sure how much gas he's got left in the tank. Can he be a number one receiver anymore? I don't know. Tyler Boyd, I like him, but he's a slot. And we have Wandale Robinson. We have Darren Waller. And I like Curtis Samuel, but he's very similar to a lot of guys on this team. So I'm keeping my eyes on Darnell Mooney as well as Calvin Ridley and Courtland Sutton. Those are 3 guys that I would love to see the Giants target. So we just went through 8 things that I would like to see the Giants do. Talking about coordinators, Brian Daboll calling the plays, fix the O-line, who to take in the draft, what playmakers to add, and what to do with Barkley and McKinney. This isn't a one-step, one-off-season fix. This team's got a long way to go. I'd like to go break the bank and spend it on everybody, but I tried to be realistic. So be honest with me now. Grade my off-season plan A, B, C, D, or F. As always, I just want to say thank you and appreciate you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, hit that thumbs up icon. It'd mean a lot. It helps the channel. And let's go Big Blue.